when you raise to powers that are fractions. For example, what's 9 to the 1/2 power? But before we dive into fractional powers, suppose you're raising 9 to the 4th, and then you raise that to the 5th power. This equals 9 raised to another power. What's the missing exponent here?
9 to the 4th means we have 4 9s, or 9 times 9 times 9 times 9, and this 5th power here means we have 5 sets of those. If we have 5 sets of 4 9s, there are a total of 20 9s there, so we can write that as 9 to the 20th. Notice that that 20 came from a 4 times a 5.
Another power, you can multiply the exponents together. So 4 times 5 equals 20, meaning 9 to the 4th raised to the 5th equals 9 to the 20th. Great, so let's return to 9 raised to the 1/2 power. To figure out what this equals, let's square it, meaning we're raising it to the 2nd power. This equals 9 raised to an...
Multiply these powers here. If we do that, we'll get 2 times a half, and 2 times a half is 1, so the missing exponent is 1.
Right, 1/2 times 2 equals 1, so this equals 9 to the 1st power, and any number raised to the 1st power is just that number, so this equals 9. Interesting. So whatever 9 to the 1/2 is, when you square it, you get 9. Now what other number can you square to get 9?
Three raised to the 2nd power is equal to 9, so one number you can square to get 9 is 3.
Precisely, 3 squared equals 9, and that's because 3 is the square root of 9. Remember that square roots and squares cancel out, just like the exponents of 1/2 and 2 over here. So these two expressions here mean the same thing. In general, raising to the 1/2 power is the same thing as taking a square root. So next, try evaluating these three expressions. For this one down here, give your answer to 2 decimal places, and you might want to use a calculator.
25 to the 1/2 power is the same thing as the square root of 25. And the square root of 25 is 5, because 5 times 5 is equal to 25. Why don't you give the rest a shot? 1 to the 1/2 power is the same thing as the square root of 1, and the square root of 1 is 1, because 1 times 1 is equal to 1. Finally, 2 to the 1/2 power is the square root of 2. To figure that one out, we'll need a calculator. So let's open the calculator and type in square root of 2 equals, and we get about 1.414. So the square root of 2, or 2 to the 1/2 power, is approximately equal to 1.414.
Nicely done. 25 to the 1/2 power is the square root of 25, or 5. 1 to the 1/2 is the square root of 1, or 1, and 2 to the 1/2 is the square root of 2, which is approximately 1.41421, and so on. Next, what about raising a number to the 1/3 power? Well, starting with 8 to the 1/3, let's then raise it to the 3rd power. This expression equals 8 raised to another power. So once again, find the missing exponent.
Here we have the power of a number raised to another power, so again we want to multiply these two. What's 3 times 1/3? Well, that's 1, so this should be 8 to the 1st power.
Exactly, 1/3 times 3 equals 1, so this is 8 to the 1st power, or 8. So whatever 8 to the 1/3 is, when you cube it, you get 8. What other number can you cube to get 8? Right. Cubing 2 gives you 8. In other words, 2 is the cube root of 8. So 8 to the 1/3 power is the same thing as the cube root of 8. So in general, raising a number to the 1/3 power is the same as taking a cube root. Try using this fact to evaluate 64 to the 1/3 and 0 to the 1/3.
64 to the 1/3 is the same thing as the cube root of 64. What's that? Well, 4 cubed is equal to 64, so the cube root of 64 is 4. Why don't you try to figure out the cube root of 0? 0 to the 1/3 is the cube root of 0. And that's just 0, because 0 times 0 times 0 is equal to 0.
Nicely done. 64 to the 1/3 is the cube root of 64, or 4, while 0 to the 1/3 is the cube root of 0, which is 0. So you probably see a pattern here. Sure enough, raising to the 1/4 is the same as taking a 4th root, raising to the 1/5 is the same as taking a 5th root, and so on. So next, what's 243 to the 0.2? To get started here, you might want to rewrite 0.2 as a fraction.
Remember, 0.2 is the same thing as 2/10, and 2/10 is the same thing as 1/5. So we can rewrite this expression as 243 to the 1/5 power. Another way to write that is as the 5th root of 243. Can you figure out what that is? Well, if you play around a bit, you'll see that 3 raised to the 5th power is 243. So the 5th root of 243 is 3.
Nicely done. 0.2 equals 1/5. So 243 to the 0.2 is the same thing as 243 to the 1/5, which is then the 5th root of 243, or 3. So for your final challenge, suppose you're asked to find the 4th root of 137. The answer here is not a whole number, so you'll want to use the calculator and give your answer to 2 decimal places.
Let's first rewrite this root using a power. This is 137 raised to the 1/4 power. Now 1/4 is the same thing as 0.25, so we can rewrite that as 137 raised to the 0.25 power. Try evaluating that using the calculator.